Look who's back.
Back again.
John is back with us today, so it's good to have you back.
Glad to be back.
Missed you yesterday. I don't like doing it alone.
I don't like it either. Quinn had to have a little procedure. She had a lip tie and a tongue tie, and had to get that all sorted out, and needed to put my dad hat on and care for my baby. But glad to be back where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. So, only announcement today is remember if you are interested in picking up a Portals of Prayer, those are our daily devotional books. I think they're done by 2 months at a time or something.
I believe so.
I think it's 2 months at a time.
So, can't remember.
Or quarterly, one or the other. But they are here at church. You can either pick them up on Sunday if you're going to be here in person, or if you just want to drive by during the day, they're sitting outside.
If it's a nice day, they're sitting outside.
Yeah, you don't even need a mask. Just pull right up to the curb, get out of your car, come on up to the front door, grab and go. That's it. So, hope you can come and get them. We have them ready for you.
Yeah.
So, we're going to go back to Philippians today because I did it by myself, and John has things he wants to talk about with suffering too.
Sure.
Because he was with his baby yesterday crying. So, I'm just kidding. So, we're Philippians 1:21 to 30, John. For me, living is Christ and dying is gain. If I am to live in the flesh, that means fruitful labor for me. And I do not know which I prefer. I am hard pressed between the two. My desire is to depart and be with Christ, for that is far better. But to remain in the flesh is more necessary for you. Since I am convinced of this, I know that I will remain and continue with all of you for your progress and joy in faith, so that I may share abundantly in your boasting in Christ Jesus when I come to you again. Only live your life in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ, so that whether I come and see you or am absent and hear about you, I will know that you are standing firm in one spirit, striving side by side with one mind for the faith of the gospel, and are in no way intimidated by your opponents. For them, this is evidence of their destruction, but of your salvation. And this is God's doing, for he has graciously granted you the privilege not only of believing in Christ, but of suffering for him as well. Great privilege.
Huge privilege.
Since you are having the same struggle that you saw I had now, since you are having the same struggle that you saw I had and now hear that I still have. So, John, I explained to folks yesterday. This was a prison letter. Mm-hmm. Paul was in prison, and pretty much figuring he's going to die.
Yep.
I think this was the jailbreak in Acts that folks will learn about if they do the Acts small groups. Mm-hmm. So he does actually get out of prison, but I think he fully expects probably to die. Yeah. Silas is with him. I think he fully expects to die. Mm-hmm. So I kind of said, Paul has had lots of suffering, and he's in prison expecting to die, so he's suffering now as well. So, and I did the first part of it yesterday. Why don't you go ahead, since you weren't here? I mean, just share your thoughts and reflections on what jumps out for you.
I think one of the things that I think is helpful, when we get Paul's letters, we catch just about all the churches that Paul plants. Paul writes a letter to each of them, but then we get the sort of multiple letters. And I think here there's a line in that second part where we understand why, the Corinthians have more than one letter, why the Thessalonians have more than one letter, where Paul has that line of whether I come and see you again or whether I hear about you, I know that you're standing firm in Christ, where we get this, I think, understanding that Paul's got kind of people all out that are keeping him well apprised of what's going on. So I'm sure Paul hears about, the Philippians aren't doing so hot, Paul. Maybe you need to take some time, and thus we get this letter. Or, the Corinthians, that one letter you wrote them didn't really do it. Think you got to straighten this out again.
There's more stuff going, yeah.
So I think historically we get a little nod to why this is happening. I think the really interesting part is, I think, looking at, and I think you covered it really well yesterday, of, why Paul is writing this. What's our struggle? What is our struggle today as 21st century people? Because mean, Paul's writing to a people that are currently being persecuted. You get this notion of, so that, it's the evidence of the damnation of your enemies, but to you it is your salvation. That we're living in this time of active church persecution, and Paul's feeling that directly where he is in prison. But thank goodness that's not our station anymore. But what is? I mean, these letters speak to us where we are. Do we kind of feel a little persecuted by COVID? Yeah, I kind of feel that a little bit. That, the things that I can't, the things that I want to do, I can't. And while we're slowly moving back, I think these lines that Paul's talking about of suffering for the gospel kind of hit home in a little bit different way. Of, I do feel a little tinge of suffering that the church that I've grown up with and the church that I'm used to here can't fully do that. I can't fully experience that, and I feel that pain and that loss that comes with it. But here we still stand. We still gather. We gather in different ways. We push through because the gospel matters.
Yeah.
And I think that's helpful of trying to find, all right, you know what? Our station isn't so very different from Paul and the Philippians. We just have to dig a little bit to find what it is.
And you know what really jumped out at me this time, John, and we didn't talk about it off camera because it was only when I read it the 8th time that it actually,
of course that happened.
That it actually jumped out at me. But when he talks about live your life in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ, he goes on to say, whether he's with them or hears about them, he will know that they are standing firm in the Spirit, striving side by side with one mind for the faith of the gospel. So there's this piece where, keep the faith, keep the hope, love one another, don't be divided against one another, continue to proclaim the gospel, all of those things. Live your life in a manner worthy of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and do that so that, number one, you're not intimidated by your opponents. And then he says, for them, and you quoted this, for them this is evidence of their destruction, but of your salvation. It's evidence of their salvation. And I think I what jumped out at me for that is I've had a number of people writing to me about exactly what you've been talking about. Just writing notes and talking to me on the phone and just about the ongoingness of COVID and the political climate that we're in, and it amped up again last night with Breonna Taylor. People just feeling very hopeless. And Paul kind of says, you need to live your life proclaiming the gospel, firm in that faith that Jesus Christ is our salvation. Because by doing so, it is evidence of our salvation, but it's also evidence of all of the things that are raging and foaming right now of their destruction. And I think that's really hard for people to grab a hold of. It's the same way that we look at the cross of Jesus, right? And say, aha, my God, dying on a cross, giving up his life on the cross. That's my salvation. People who don't get faith don't get that. People who don't get Christianity don't get that. They're like, really? Your God essentially failing and dying is salvation? And it is, because we know that death is not the end of the story. That death, that on the other side of that is resurrection. And we know that Jesus is actually going to embrace death and defeat it and come out the other side. And I think that that's important for us in these times. Paul talks about, standing firm in the faith, side by side, one proclamation. of one mind, he says, for the faith of the gospel. And that's evidence that all these things that create suffering in the world are passing away. I find that remarkable.
And I think that community piece of that too is, I mean, in the conversations that we have, we're called to be united in one mind to say when somebody's feeling that stress and that weight of things raging and foaming, we're called to say, you know what, that's not the final say.
Yeah.
We're called together in community for just such a time as this.
Yeah.
To, you know, as Paul talks later, the mutual consolation of the brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
That's the point.
And don't you think that's because he says to live is Christ? Living is suffering. So we need that mutual consolation of the saints, right?
Exactly. Which, I mean, these churches do it to Paul, and Paul does it back to them. I mean, that's really the point. We need to be reminded that the resurrection is real and doesn't just happen once, but it happens daily, over and over for each of us. That, you know, I mean, we're 2,000 years later, we still have suffering. It's different, but the resurrection still speaks into that space for us. And we need to be sometimes beaten over the head with it.
That's right.
Just like, this is real. This is your reality. This is what it's all about.
Yeah.
And
that's good stuff.
Yeah, I think Paul speaks
to where we are.
Exactly. Man outside of time.
Yeah. Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Lord God, you have given us, as John said, the mutual consolation of the saints. You've given us each other to lean on, to be community together, to worship, to pick up the phone and to call, to receive a card, all for encouragement in times of difficulty, all to share a common proclamation of our faith that there's something bigger than what we are going through right now, and that is the salvation of Jesus Christ. Help us, Lord, to focus on that cross and keep it ever in front of us so that we are reminded of what gets the final say. It's your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
See you on Friday?
Yeah, see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.